Good afternoon, everyone. I apologize for our tardiness. I was with the president. Let me begin with a few scheduling announcements today. President Trump will travel to Scotland, where he will visit both Turnberry and Aberdeen from July 25th to July 29th. During the visit, President Trump will meet again with Prime Minister Starmer to refine the great trade deal that was brokered between the United States and the United Kingdom. And the President and the First Lady will travel to the United Kingdom for an official state visit from September 17th to September 19th later this fall. This will mark a truly unprecedented second state visit for President Trump, and he is honored and looking forward to meeting with His Majesty the King at Windsor Castle. There has been a wave of positive economic news over the past week, which I would like to highlight today. Joe Biden's inflation crisis has been defeated. Prices paid to American businesses for goods and services were flat in June, which is lower than all 50 forecasters in the Bloomberg survey predicted. And core inflation, which is the best measure of inflation, came in lower than expected again in the month of June. Since President Trump took office, core inflation has tracked at just 2.1% overall and has come in below or at economists' expectations every single month. Wages are growing at a strong pace and prices are falling for everyday Americans. We also saw prices for new and used vehicles and airfares drop last month. In addition, prices for gas, fuel oil, energy commodities, hotels, airfare, public transportation, and fresh vegetables are all down over last year. As we said all along, trust in President Trump. The American dream is back, and everyday families are already reaping the benefits of this incredible economic turnaround in just 6 months. President Trump has ended the era of economic surrender and implemented powerful tariffs to stand up for our workers and businesses and rebalance America's trading agreements. Despite all of the doom casting from the so-called experts claiming that these tariffs would be the end of the world as we know it, the opposite has occurred. Tariffs are not inflationary, as President Trump has said all along. In reality, tariffs are a source of massive revenue. We're seeing trillions of dollars in private investment pour into our country right now because the companies around this world want to make their products right here with American labor and not have to pay any tariffs at all. Customs and tariff revenue has already totaled more than $113 billion since President Trump entered office, helping to lead a budget surplus in June for the first time in nearly a decade. We are truly entering a golden age as a result of these pro-growth and America First trade policies. On another matter, yesterday in the East Room, the president was proud to sign the Halt All Lethal Trafficking of Fentanyl Act into law, surrounded by angel families to help finally end the devastating fentanyl crisis that has ravaged millions of Americans. Under the Halt Fentanyl Act, anyone who possesses, imports, distributes, or manufactures any illicit fentanyl-related substances will be subject to criminal prosecution in the same manner as any other Schedule I controlled substance. This legislation will close the loopholes that criminals use to skirt around the law and make it easier for law enforcement to prosecute vicious traffickers who peddle poison in our communities. President Trump has always made tackling the drug crisis a top priority, and this important bipartisan legislation further follows through on that commitment. The complete and total success at our southern border that many in the media in this room continue to ignore is another example of the president keeping his word to families who have lost loved ones due to fentanyl, and it's another win for the American people. Customs and Border Protection just released the final operationalized stats for the month of June, and I must highlight some of these incredible numbers. There were only 6,072 Southwest apprehensions in June, 15% lower than the previous record that this president set in the month of March. To put that in perspective, the Biden administration routinely saw the same number of encounters in a single day, and on many days, that number was more than 10,000 apprehensions at the Southwest border. There were also 0 illegal aliens released along the Southwest border for the second consecutive month in a row. President Trump promised to end the illegal alien invasion, and he has delivered on that promise to the American people in record time. With the border sealed, deportations are ramping up. This past weekend, our brave ICE agents were arresting violent criminal illegal aliens all across the country. ICE Atlanta arrested an illegal alien from Mexico, convicted of attempted rape of a child in North Carolina. ICE Baltimore arrested an illegal alien from Guatemala who was previously convicted for sexual abuse of a minor in Maryland. ICE Houston arrested a criminal illegal alien from Mexico whose previous conviction includes aggravated sexual assault of a child in Texas. ICE Salt Lake City arrested a 32-year-old illegal criminal alien from Mexico who was previously convicted for child abuse and injury. ICE Baltimore arrested a criminal illegal alien from El Salvador convicted in Maryland for possession of child pornography. And ICE San Antonio arrested a criminal illegal alien from Mexico convicted of aggravated sexual assault in Texas. The men and women of ICE are heroes. They are putting their lives on the line every day to get the worst of the worst, these types of criminals, out of our communities and out of our country. And the president continues to strongly have the backs of all ICE agents who are doing their jobs to keep all of us, including everyone in this room, safe. The facility, one second. In other news, following President Trump's bold executive actions protecting American children from irreversible chemical and surgical mutilation, the largest provider of these barbaric practices will now be closing its doors. The facility in Los Angeles, California, is just the latest facility downsizing or eliminating their irreversible and harmful services that feed into the lie that you can somehow change a child's sex. The Biden administration peddled dangerous policies that defied medical science in favor of radical transgender ideology. But President Trump has put an end to that to ensure America's children's innocence is protected and our children can lead healthy and productive lives. Finally, last night, Senate Republicans passed President Trump's $9 billion recisions package. This will help restore fiscal sanity in our country by rescinding billions in wasteful foreign aid and finally ending taxpayer funding for PBS and NPR, two media organizations that have ridiculously used federal dollars to push a partisan left-wing agenda for many years. The House should pass this rescissions package immediately and send it to the president's desk for signature. On another note, I know that many in the media have been speculating about bruising on the president's hand and also swelling in the president's legs. So in the effort of transparency, the president wanted me to share a note from his physician with all of you today. In recent weeks, President Trump noted mild swelling in his lower legs. In keeping with routine medical care and out of an abundance of caution, this concern was thoroughly evaluated by the White House medical unit. The president underwent a comprehensive examination, including diagnostic vascular studies. Bilateral lower extremity venous Doppler ultrasounds were performed and revealed chronic venous insufficiency, a benign and common condition, particularly in individuals over the age of 70. Importantly, there was no evidence of deep vein thrombosis or arterial disease. Laboratory testing included a complete blood count, comprehensive metabolic panel, coagulation profile, D-dimer, B-type natriuretic peptide, and cardiac biomarkers. All results were within normal limits. An echocardiogram was also performed and confirmed normal cardiac structure and function. No signs of heart failure, renal impairment, or systemic illness were identified. Additionally, recent photos of the president have shown minor bruising on the back of his hand. This is consistent with minor soft tissue irritation from frequent handshaking and the use of aspirin, which is taken as part of a standard cardiovascular prevention regimen. This is a well-known and benign side effect of aspirin therapy. And the president remains in excellent health, which I think all of you witness on a daily basis here. So the president wanted me to share that note with all of you. I'm happy to take further questions on it. We will provide the memorandum from the president's position to all of you, as we always do. And we'll get to questions. Here in our new media seat, we have Frank Corva, who's the White House correspondent for Bitcoin Magazine, which comes at a timely week with crypto legislation moving across Capitol Hill. So why don't you kick us off, Frank, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much. We Appreciate it, Ms. Leavitt.
Sure.
I was curious to hear if the president was in favor of removing any and all language around central bank digital currencies from the Genius Act, maybe as a means to get it across the line and get it on his desk. And then my second question was about something the president spoke about in this room. He talked about a $600 de minimis tax exemption for Bitcoin and other crypto spending. So I was just wondering if you could comment on those.
Sure. Well, the president did signal his support for a de minimis exemption for crypto, and the administration continues to be in support of that. We are definitely receptive to it to make crypto payments easier and more efficient for those who seek to use crypto as simple as buying a cup of coffee. Of course, right now that cannot happen, but with the de minimis exemption, perhaps it could in the future, and we will continue to explore legislative solutions to accomplish that. As for the central bank digital currency and the Genius Act, which you noted has passed through Congress and will be sent to the president's desk. I believe the House is voting on it. If they haven't, they should be passing it. We know we have the votes, and we expect it to get to the president's desk, and we are planning a signing ceremony tomorrow afternoon. All of you will get more details on that. This piece of legislation is going to make America the crypto capital of the world, and that's what the president promised. As for a central bank digital currency, the president opposes that. He made that promise to the American people on the campaign, and while it's not in this specific piece of legislation, he did sign a January executive order banning a central bank digital currency. The administration supports Congress's efforts to codify that executive order into law, and I believe there will be future pieces of legislation in regards to crypto that will be moving through Capitol Hill. The president looks forward to signing them, and he looks forward to the signing ceremony this afternoon. So thank you for being with us today. Sure. Jackie.
Thank you, Karoline. There's been a lot of discussion about the Epstein files and the president's comments yesterday calling it a hoax. Can you clarify which part of the Epstein hoax is the hoax part?
The president is referring to the fact that Democrats have now seized on this as if they ever wanted transparency when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, which is an asinine suggestion for any Democrat to make. The Democrats had control of this building, the White House, for 4 years, and they didn't do a dang thing when it came to transparency in regards to Jeffrey Epstein and his heinous crimes. It was this president who directed the Department of Justice and the Attorney General to do an exhaustive review of all files related to Jeffrey Epstein, which they did. The Attorney General and the FBI, led by Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, these are great patriots, some of the most trusted voices in the Republican Party movement. It's part of the reason the president appointed them to these high law enforcement positions, and they spent many months going through all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein, and they concluded what they found in that memo, which they drafted and they released. And so the president has been transparent. He has followed through on his promises to the American people, but he doesn't like to see Democrats and the mainstream media covering this like it's the biggest story that the American people care about. The president has been working so hard this week. On Tuesday, he went to Pennsylvania, where he secured $90 billion in investments for the Commonwealth, for the people of that state. After that, he came back to the Oval Office at 8 p.m. He went in there to whip votes to get the Genius Act signed into law. And because of his efforts, that bill is now going to be signed and passed. The following day, yesterday, he meets with a foreign leader, the King of Bahrain, to secure more investments into this country. And then yesterday afternoon, the president is in the East Room of the White House mourning with parents who have lost their children because of fentanyl, signing a bipartisan piece of legislation. And not a single cable network in this country took that event live and covered that event like they should. Those are the issues the president cares about. What could be more important to the American people than helping families who have lost their children? Those are the issues this president is going to remain focused on.
I understand he wants to move on from the story, but you do have some prominent figures, including the Senate Majority Leader, the House Speaker, voicing support for the files to come out. Representative Massey collecting signatures that would force a discharge petition for a vote on the floor for this. It doesn't seem to be going away. What is stopping the administration from just redacting any sensitive information, grand jury information, and putting out what is appropriate so that the American people can decide and then let this story die?
Well, in terms of redactions or grand jury seals, those are questions for the Department of Justice. Those are also questions for the judges who have that information under a seal. And that would have to be requested, and a judge would have to approve it. That's out of the president's control. He has said, in agreement with some of the leaders on Capitol Hill, that if the Attorney General and the Department of Justice come across any other credible evidence, they should provide that to the American people. The president has said that, and he agrees with them on
Why
that.
did he fire Maureen Comey?
The Department of Justice did, and I would defer you to them. Dasha.
Has the White House been directly in touch with some of the MAGA influencers that are still not satisfied with the administration's handling? And has the message to them been similar to what the president has said, which is sort of either let this go or we don't need your support?
Well, look, the president and this team are always in contact with the president's supporters, with voices of many kinds on both sides of the aisle. I think that's part of the reason this president is a great president, because he's willing to listen and hear other people's perspectives. But ultimately, he has led this country, not just over the past 6 months to historic success, but also through his first 4 years as president. And as the leader and the creator of the MAGA movement, he has led through these perilous times for our country based on instinct and in the best interest of the country. And as I always say, the American people should trust in President Trump. John, go ahead, John.
Thanks a lot, Karoline. The president on Monday announced that if there's not compliance with Russia within 50 days, there would be increased tariffs. Can you explain how that works, first of all? What happens if Russia doesn't end its war with Ukraine in 50 days?
Well, in 50 days, as the president clearly laid out, if there is not a ceasefire agreement or a peace deal within that time frame, if Russia refuses to legitimately agree to a ceasefire, then they will face very steep tariffs, and they will also face secondary sanctions. So countries that are purchasing oil from Russia will be sanctioned as well, and of course that will do deep damage to Russia's economy. And I would just add that the president wants this war to end with a diplomatic solution. He's been pushing for it. This administration has spent many hours and a lot of time trying to solve this war very far away, but the president wants to stop the killing and he wants to save lives.
As far
Reagan,
as the first part
go
of
ahead.
what you were saying, Karoline.
Reagan, go ahead.
I have two questions for you.
It's just about, if I may, just about the tariffs, the first part. I get the secondary tariffs, but there was only $3 billion worth of trade between the U.S. and Russia in 2024. It's expected to be far less this particular year. On April the 2nd, both you and the Treasury Secretary said it's not necessary to apply any tariffs on Russia. You said that because of the lack of trade, it precludes, that was the word you used, any need for tariffs. Why now, and why do you think that that would make them cave and come to some sort of peace agreement as it relates to Ukraine?
$3 billion is still a lot of money, John, and it's not just tariffs, it's the secondary sanctions as well that will be implemented in 50 days. Reagan.
Thanks, Caroline. I have two questions for
Sure.
you. First on Congress. Congresswoman Salazar introduced legislation that would give some illegal immigrants in the country a path to citizenship. 10 Republicans signed on to what she's calling the Dignity Act. I'm curious what the White House's position is on the legislation and if the president would veto this bill if it made it to its desk.
From my understanding, the White House nor the president has actually read through this legislation. We've been focused on, of course, the One Big Beautiful Bill, which passed, which is another historic accomplishment of this president in record time. The Genius Act this week, the recisions package, that's been the focus of the White House. But the president has made it very clear he will not support amnesty for illegal aliens in any way.
I want to give you a chance to respond to the CEO of NPR. She's claiming that the cuts to their network will, quote, be a real risk to public safety of the country. Congressman Murkowski has argued that public broadcasting stations save lives. Could you respond to these concerns?
The NPR CEO said cutting NPR will be a risk to public safety. I am not sure how NPR helps the public safety of our country, but I do know that NPR, unfortunately, has become really just a propaganda voice for the left. Just a few examples for you. In 2020, NPR refused to cover the Hunter Biden laptop scandal in the run-up to the election. They said their assertions don't amount to much, writing they did not want to waste the listeners' and readers' time on stories that are just pure distractions. That does not sound like an unbiased opinion. That sounds like a partisan opinion to me. And this is a taxpayer-funded organization. In 2018, that same CEO that you're talking about called the president in the Oval Office, who nearly 80 million Americans elected, she called him racist, shared a photo of herself wearing a Biden for President campaign hat, serves on the board of a Soros-funded activist group. In 2020, PBS's White House correspondent at the time characterized President Trump's speech then at Mount Rushmore as a love letter to white resentment, promoting the myth of America. In 2017, PBS devoted an entire panel talking about what it means to be woke and white privilege. In 2023, PBS's Washington Week Roundtable covered up Joe Biden's clear mental divide. That's actually quite the clip. I would encourage all of you to look at it. These are not honest news organizations. These are partisan, left-wing outlets that are funded by the taxpayers. And this administration does not believe it's a good use of the taxpayers' time and money. Ed Lawrence.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. I want to ask you about the Federal Reserve. So does the president believe that the slightly restrictive monetary policy stance right now, could that cause an economic slowdown? And if he does believe that, when?
What pause are you referring to?
No, could the stance of the monetary policy is slightly restrictive? Does the president believe that that stance, the slightly restrictive stance, could cause an economic slowdown in itself?
I haven't heard the president discuss that specifically, but what I do know in regards to the Federal Reserve is the president's been very transparent about his displeasure with both the policies and the management of the Fed, and he spoke about that to all of you pretty extensively in the Oval Office yesterday.
And last month, one more if I could. Last month, the Canadian Prime Minister said the president had agreed to a July 21st deadline to sort of work towards a trade agreement. That's 4 days from now. Could there be a trade agreement with Canada in 4 days?
Well, look, we'll see. The trade team continues to be very active in our conversations and discussions with Canada. The president himself has said, unfortunately, our neighbors to the north have been pretty difficult to deal with when it comes to matters on trade. But in trade, generally speaking, as you know, 25 countries have received letters thus far from the president directly with his big, beautiful signature on them, from Japan to Korea, South Africa, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, just a few countries, and Canada also received a letter for 35%. With that said, if countries want to have legitimate further discussions, the Trump administration and the president's trade team are willing to have further talks, but these letters these countries have been receiving are the deals. And as the president has said, those deals will be made. They are tailor-made to each and every country based on the United States' concerns and what's in the best interest of the American worker and the American people.
Karoline.
Charlie, go ahead.
Thank you, Karoline.
No, I called on Charlie, but Deanna, you can go ahead too. Go ahead.
The president said that he floated the idea of a special prosecutor in the Epstein case. Can you confirm that? And has he asked the Attorney General to do this, to appoint a special prosecutor to look it over?
Well, the idea was floated from someone in the media to the president. The president would not recommend a special prosecutor in the Epstein case. That's how he feels. And as for his discussions with the Attorney General, I'm not sure. Deanna.
Karoline. Thank you so much. Do you know what the president's reaction was to Mike Johnson saying that he wants additional files released, the Epstein files? Was there a conversation with Mike Johnson about that following his comments?
I won't discuss the president's private conversations with the Speaker of the House, but as I answered to Jackie's question earlier, the president has said if the Attorney General and the Department of Justice and the FBI have any more credible evidence in regards to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, they should put that forward. He has called on them to do that. Sure. Go ahead.
Thank you, Karoline.
With a few days.
I'll go to all of you, starting with the lady in the blue. Go ahead.
With a few days to the August 9th deadline, how are the negotiations with Europe going? There's some sticking points. What are they? Can we expect a delay, or should we expect a deal soon?
Well, I believe the deadline is August 1st. As for the European Union, they continue to be very eager in negotiating with our country for obvious reasons on ways to lower their tariff and their non-tariff barriers that we have long said harm our workers and our companies. So the president's trade team continue to be in talks with the European Union.
Would he accept, or would he put forth a postponement of the August 1st?
He's already said he will not.
Caroline,
Owen, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Caroline. In Gaza today, Holy Family Catholic Church was struck by an Israeli shell.
Yes.
3 people were killed, 10 wounded. What is the president's reaction to that church coming under fire?
It was not a positive reaction. He called Prime Minister Netanyahu this morning to address the strikes on that church in Gaza, and I understand the Prime Minister agreed to put out a statement. It was a mistake by the Israelis to hit that Catholic church. That's what the Prime Minister relayed to the President, and you should look at the Prime Minister's statement that will be coming out. Steve, go ahead.
Back to your letter that you read at the beginning.
Sure.
The President, you said mild swelling in his legs. Is
Yes,
it
sir.
causing him any discomfort? How are you treating it?
Nope. No discomfort from the president at all, and you probably all see that on a day-to-day basis. He's working around the clock. As for the treatments, I can defer to the president's physician, and we'll get you this letter. I think it will answer all your questions.
There are reports that a Chinese-born banker who works in Atlanta for Wells Fargo is being prevented from leaving China. Has the president, is he going to bring this up with President Xi? Are you aware of the case?
I'm not aware of the case, but I'm sure our National Security Council team is. Steve will get you some answers on that.
Thank you.
Kristen.
Thank you, Caroline. Two questions. So the first is that President Trump said that the Attorney General only gave him a brief overview of what was in these Epstein files. Does he have knowledge or an understanding of what is in the files related to Epstein that have not been released?
Not to my knowledge, and that's a question for the Attorney General, as I said, and the President has told the Attorney General if they have any more credible evidence, they should release it.
Is that evidence, would she have to run that by the President before she released it?
I don't think so. He said if she has any more credible evidence, she should release it.
Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Go ahead, yes.
Great, thank you, Caroline. Two questions. One, today.
And you can go ahead, Andrew. Don't worry.
Today, tens of thousands of folks are rallying nationwide to honor the legacy of Congressman John Lewis. Meanwhile, Republicans in Texas reportedly are working to redraw congressional maps at President Trump's urging. How is President Trump reconciling his call to action for Texas Republicans with the legacy of Representative John Lewis?
I'm not quite sure how the two things are related. I think the president would agree that John Lewis served our country for many, many years. It has nothing to do with the redistricting efforts that are currently underway by Texas Republicans to add seats to their legislature. They have the right to do that. The president spoke to the congressmen and women who serve the great state of Texas about it, but it's up to them and it's up to their legislature to get that approved.
And Caroline, just the second question. And
Go
does
ahead.
the president support the Justice Department's request for just 1 day in jail for the officer convicted in Breonna Taylor's killing? And what message does he believe that sends to her family and to other families seeking justice in cases of police violence?
I haven't talked to the president about that case. Go ahead.
Just the president, when the president met the interim president of Syria a couple of months ago, he described him as a young, tough, attractive guy. After the latest clashes in Syria over the last few days, does President Trump still support Syria's interim president?
The president still supports Syria's pathway to a peaceful and prosperous country, and you received an update directly from the Secretary of State on the ongoing situation between Syria and Israel. I spoke to him myself this morning to get an update, and as soon as the United States became involved in this conflict, we were able to de-escalate, deconflict. That seems to be continuing. Syria agreed to draw back their troops that were in the area where that clash was ongoing, and we continue to be very actively monitoring the situation. The president wants to see Syria become a prosperous and stable country, and by the lifting of the sanctions on Syria, he's giving them a real chance to do that, and he wants to see that through. Andrew, go ahead.
So on Tuesday, the president told a very detailed story about his uncle, noted scientist John Trump, and Theodore Kaczynski, the late Unabomber. He said that Dr. Trump taught Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski was not identified as the Unabomber until 1996, 11 years after John Trump passed away. It would have been impossible for John Trump to have ever discussed the Unabomber with the president. So what was he talking about? And I have one follow-up.
Andrew, with so many issues going on in the world, I'm a little bit surprised you would ask such a question, although I'm not sometimes coming from you, I will say, but I'm willing to give you an answer. Nevertheless, the president's uncle did, in fact, teach at MIT. He was a very intelligent professor. The president's very proud of his family. In fact, the president has a letter from his uncle on the MIT letterhead that sits in the Oval Office dining room. Maybe we'll let you see it sometime.
And then
Elizabeth.
Caroline, one more on.
Elizabeth,
will the
go
president consider pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell
Elizabeth,
if the Epstein case is a hoax?
Okay, I'll start off with the president said last week he would not be getting involved in the New York City mayoral case. If that mayoral race, if that's still the case, given his history drawing a large crowd in New York City, what's his reason for staying out of it in that way?
Well, look, I think the president reserves the right to get involved in races or not get involved in races, and he's made the decision not to weigh in on the New York mayoral race, as you rightly pointed out, although he has gone as far to say he absolutely does not want to see Zemdami elected, who is a known communist who supports the abolishment of private property, the defunding of police. He has made very well-known anti-Semitic statements. It would be a disaster for New York and for this country, and I think it's quite telling that this individual, a known communist, has been spending time in Washington this week meeting with leaders on Capitol Hill. This is truly where the Democrat Party is headed. Clearly, they learned nothing from November 5th in the president's overwhelming victory. Mary, go ahead.
Thank you, Karoline. I wanted to backtrack to the hospitals that have stopped providing transgender surgeries and hormones for kids. On this front, does that have anything to do with the DOJ subpoenas last week? Should we expect any more hospitals be shutting down their programs? And I wanted to also ask what you make of all these media reports, especially the AP, which I noticed, which portrays these children as losing something that's saving their lives.
Yes, I think the president spoke a lot about this issue, which is a political issue, but also really a cultural issue that impacts children and families. He talked about it a lot on the campaign, and I think he was quite surprised by the uptick we were seeing in the embracement by the Democrat Party when it comes to the chemical castration and mutilation of young, innocent bodies. And so the president made it a very early priority to sign very strong executive orders to cut off the funding for any hospital or any medical facility in this country that provides such barbaric procedures. And as a result of that strong policy and the president's strong common sense position on this issue, we've had such an overwhelming response, which is great for children in Arizona. Phoenix Children's Hospital has stopped providing puberty blockers and hormone therapy to minors. In California, Stanford Medicine ended sex change surgeries for minors. Children's Hospital Los Angeles is closing its Center for Trans Youth Health and Development surgical program. In Illinois, Lurie Children's Hospital Chicago stopped sex change surgeries. Again, let's think about what we're talking about here. Sex change surgeries for minors. These are barbaric practices that no innocent child should have to endure. And the president wants to protect the innocence of children, and I know the vast majority of Americans support him in that effort. This is a wildly popular and common sense endeavor this administration has taken, and we've seen many of these medical institutions have followed through with the president's executive orders, but will continue to take further action on this important issue. Garrett.
I too, if you'll indulge me.
Sure.
On the recisions package, I wonder what the White House makes of this theory that it increases the odds of a shutdown. The theory is basically, why would any Democrat vote for a bipartisan spending deal with Republicans if Republicans can turn around and claw the money back the next day?
Look, $9 billion worth of crap that it was in our federal funding that is now being rescinded. This is a good thing for the American people and the American taxpayer, and I think our Office of Management and Budget Director was saying this process should be more bipartisan. Democrats, there was a time in this country where Democrats too cared about getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse in our federal spending. I think every American agrees the government spends way too much money on things that don't matter. Some of those things includes PBS and NPR, or for instance, the Democracy Fund, which was funded to the tune of $83 million through the Department of State, but they were giving hundreds of thousands of dollars for gender equality and empowerment hubs in Yemen, $3.9 million for strengthening information integrity, equality, and democracy for LGBTQI population of the Western Balkans. These are not good uses of the taxpayer funds, and Republicans are proud to lead that effort, and we wish more Democrats would join us in that.
I wanted to follow up on the Maureen Comey question just to clarify. Did the White House have any knowledge, or did the president sign off on her firing?
This was a decision that was made by the Department of Justice.
There was an agreement that was made between Immigration and Customs Enforcement and the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services regarding access to Medicaid information for 92 million Medicaid recipients around the country. That includes health information. So how does that not violate HIPAA violations and privacy concerns, for example, of American citizens?
I'm going to have to defer you to Immigration and Customs Enforcement on that. I'm unfamiliar with that agreement that they made.
Thanks, Caroline. 2 questions. Russ Vought said today he's going to be looking into cost overruns in the Fed's renovation projects. Is there a deadline for him to come back with findings to the president?
I don't believe there's a deadline the president has set for Russ Vought, but I think, again, this is a good use of taxpayers' time to look into this project that is millions and millions of dollars over budget. It's for a big, beautiful mansion for the federal chairman, reserve chairman, and I understand that it costs much more than it did the beautiful palace that many of you joined us at when we went overseas. So it's completely unnecessary, it's overpriced, and I think it's a good thing the administration, led by the president, is looking into it.
If there ever were to find wrongdoing or fraud, would the president reconsidering firing Jerome Powell?
Look, it's a hypothetical question. We'll see where it goes. The president spoke about how he feels on this matter yesterday.
Sure.
Thank
Thank you so much, Caroline. So we saw Ambassador Huckabee arrive to Prime Minister Netanyahu's trial to show his support. Does the president plan to impose any kind of sanctions against the Israel judicial system?
I don't have any update for you on that or any announcement on that front. I don't believe so.
Does the president believe that justice has been served in the Epstein case?
Look, the president believes that he directed the Department of Justice to do an exhaustive and thorough review, and they did that. And they all agreed, the FBI director, the deputy FBI director, the attorney general, on the memo that they drafted and they released.
Thank you, Caroline. Just a follow-up on Reagan's question. Representative Salazar's bill, it grants illegal aliens with legal status for 7-year increments. It also gives permanent path to residency for so-called dreamers. And, you know, President Trump and Labor Secretary Chavez, who previously co-sponsored a version of this bill when she was in the House, they've spoken about a work deal similar to the bill, I believe. What's the difference between a work deal and amnesty?
Look, as I told Reagan, the president, the White House have not reviewed this specific piece of legislation. It's just not where our focus has been. But the president, for one, has been very clear he does not support amnesty. We'll go to, oh, look at some friends in the back. Brian, go ahead.
Back to the room. Thank you very much.
You didn't show up early enough to get some good real estate up here.
I love it. Any update on the auto pen? I know that there was the DOJ and some others were looking into the thousands of documents that were signed off just before Joe Biden left office. Any update on the auto pen?
Yes. I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing at how far away you are, and you're going to need to get some microphones back there. On the auto pen investigation, yes. The White House counsel's office has launched their own investigation into former President Biden's usage of the auto pen. We have requested some documents from the National Archives, and again, as I've said many times from this podium, and the president has said as well, it's incredibly important that we get to the bottom of who really was at the tip of the spear in the decision-making process here in the White House, because former President Biden himself admitted to the New York Times, I understand he never gave interviews when he was here, but now all of a sudden he wants to give one, and he said that he did not actually review every single pardon that he signed on his way out the door. That's incredibly concerning, and I can tell you it's something this president would never tolerate. This is a president who is signing things all the time. Any document that has legal implications, this president's signature is on it because he's the one making the decisions. It does not appear that was the truth in the previous White House, and I know the American people want to receive answers on who was running the show, because the decisions that were made in this place really destroyed our country, and we deserve to get to the bottom of it. Mark, in the back.
Thanks. Some Christian groups are complaining that they are not able to get visas as quickly to travel to Israel, and it's been elevated to Ambassador Huckabee's station. Is the White House aware of that? Does it have any reaction to that? And is that part of the president's disappointment with Netanyahu's government?
Look, I'm not aware of that, Mark, but I'm sure, again, our National Security Council is, and also the State Department. As you know, travel visas roll through Secretary Rubio's shop over there, whom we work very closely with, so we will check in on the matter. But I know overall this president and the administration do want to streamline the visa process to make it easier for both Americans who want to travel abroad and people abroad who want to come to our country the legal way. Sure. Go ahead. I was going to the gentleman above you, but go ahead, Libby, and then you can go.
Sorry. Okay.
Two questions for you. The first is, during the Hell Nation Summit, Secretary Noem suggested there could be some changes to TSA's liquid limits. Is the president aware of that? Is that an idea that he's backing? And what would that timeline and the changes look like?
Sure. I would defer you to the Department of Homeland Security, but I did see Secretary Noem's comments, and I think it's great that on day one she asked TSA, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? How can we make air travel more efficient while maintaining utmost security for American passengers and travelers? And I know they announced no more shoes, or you don't need to take off your shoes anymore at the airport, which I think is welcome news to all of us who travel a lot. But further guidance or decisions, of course, that's in the Secretary of Homeland Security's overview, and I would defer to her.
And the other question for you is on Bondi and Burgum's trip today to Alcatraz. I'm curious what the funding is going to look like for that, and who the president does want to see incarcerated there, if it were to become.
Sure. Well, this was an idea of the president. He spoke about it in May, and he directed his administration to review a reopening plan for Alcatraz if it is possible, which is why the Attorney General and the Secretary of Interior have traveled there today. They are touring the site, and if the Alcatraz prison is reopened, it would be under the purview of the Bureau of Prisons, and the Secretary of Interior also would play a big role in this as well. So they're there to review the site today, and I'm sure you'll hear more from them on it later. And just to follow up, Libby, on who the president wants to see housed in Alcatraz, the worst of the worst criminals in this country, both American criminals who convict heinous crimes, but also illegal alien criminals before deportation as well. Sure. Go ahead.
The State Department yesterday urged the Chinese Communist Party to cease its campaign to eradicate Falun Gong, a peaceful spiritual practice. With the anniversary of this brutal persecution approaching, does the White House have a message for the CCP on this?
Well, I will get you one, and we will get back to you. Sure. Go ahead. We'll take. Go ahead, and then go ahead. Sure. I've never called on you. Why don't you go ahead? In the red tie.
Hello.
Dr. Harper behind.
Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Me, thanks.
Yes.
Thank you, Caroline.
Yes, you. What's your name?
My name is Matias. Thank you.
What's your outlet?
I'm from Record TV, Brazil.
Great.
Brazil's President Lula recently said that President Trump was elected to govern the United States and not to act as the emperor of the world. And he also emphasized that Brazil is open to negotiation. I'd like to hear what you have to say about it, what the administration has to say about it, and specifically what areas are currently open to negotiation in the light of the 50% tariffs that were announced.
Sure. The president is certainly not trying to be the emperor of the world. He is a strong president for the United States of America, and he's also the leader of the free world. And we've seen a great shift across the entire globe because of the strong leadership of this president. In regards to Brazil, the president sent a letter to Brazil announcing their new tariff percentage. He also directed our USTR ambassador, Jameson Greer, to launch an investigation of Brazil under Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974, designed to address unfair foreign practices that are affecting U.S. commerce. For years, we know Brazil's digital regulations and weak IP protections have undermined U.S. tech and innovative companies, and their tolerance of illegal deforestation and other environmental practices puts American producers, manufacturers, farmers, and ranchers who follow better environmental standards at a competitive disadvantage. So this president always acts in the best interest of the American people and the United States of America, and he will continue to do so. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll see you later. I appreciate the enthusiasm today.